Okay, I wanted to take this last part of the recording to practice reducing fractions a little bit because I think that sometimes people get really confused and lost in this part. And this is when we've already finished our questions that we've done, and the question's asking us to reduce our answer to the lowest form or the lowest term or to simplify. You'll always see that. And this is where people get really lost at the very end. So they do everything else fine until they get to this part. So I wanted us to practice a few examples. So let's try this one. So suppose we have a 2 over 8 and we need to reduce it to our lowest form. So what we want to do is let's look at our lowest number and start with that timetable. Okay, our lowest number here on that fraction is a 2. So let's go through our 2 timetable. We know that 2 times 1 equals 2, which tells us that, okay, 1 is going to be the one that's going to be the number that's going to give us the 2. Now, we need to continue in the same timetable. We're not going to change timetables, so let's continue. 2 times 2 equals 4. 2 times 3 equals 6. 2 times 4 equals 8. And so this is where we stop. So the 2 timetable gives us a 2 as well as an 8, which means then that we can actually reduce this fraction if we divide both numbers by 2. If we divide 2 by 2, it's going to give us this 1, because 2 times 1 is 2. If we divide 8 by 2, is going to give us a 4, because 2 times 4 is 8. And that's how we reduce that fraction right there. What about if we have something like this? 5 over, let's say, 25. Okay? And so this is our answer, and we want to know if we can reduce this even further. Like I said, let's look at our lowest number. Let's always start by that and write out our timetable. Okay? We're going to write our timetable and we're going to say, okay, 5 times 1 equals 5. 5 times 2. 5 times 2 equals 10. 5 times 3 equals 15. 5 times 4 equals 20. 5 times 5 equals 25. So where are our numbers? Our numbers are right here. We got a 5 and a 25, which is what we need. We need a 5 and a 25. So what times 5 gives us a 5? 5 times 1. What times 5 gives us a 25? 5 times 5. So let's now write it out here. So if we grab the 5 timetable, we know that 5 times 1 equals 5, which is what we want here, and 5 times 5 equals 25. What if you don't know your timetables and you're scrambling to find out, oh, how am I going to reduce this now? Well, you grab your calculator, and we know we're going to try the number 5 here. You grab your calculator and you grab, okay, 5 divided by 5, what do you get? The calculator is going to say 1, so we're going to plug in 1. Okay, 25 divided by 5, what do we get? The calculator is going to say 5, so we plug in the 5. If we're using a calculator for this one right here, we're going to say, okay, calculator, 2 divided by 2, what do we get? Because the 2 is the number that we're going to be trying. And it's going to tell you 1, so you're going to plug in the 1. Okay, what about 8 divided by 2? And it's going to tell you 4, so we're going to plug in the 4. Okay, let's try one more. So what about 6 over 36? And so we have to reduce that to the lowest term or simplify it. How do we know if we can do that? We look at the lowest number. So if we're going to be using a calculator, we're going to say, okay, 6 divided by 6. And it's going to tell you something. It's going to tell you 1. And 36 divided by 6 is going to tell you 6. And we're going to plug it in. Okay, so remember, we're using this number right here, the lowest number in the fraction, to do our little test. If we're using our timetables, we know that this is true because 6 times 1 equals 6, 6 times 2 equals 12, 6 times 3 equals 18, 6 times 4 equals 24, 6 times 5 equals 30, and 6 times 6 equals 36, which is the same thing we have here in the fraction. We've got a 1 because 6 times 1 equals 6, and we have a 6 because 6 times 6 equals 36. I hope that that was helpful to try to understand how to reduce fractions to its lowest term or simplify the fractions.